Yes, sir.
I was wondering whether General Malik from Pakistan could tell us some more details about who were the detainees, how were they apprehended, how are they held, some more details about that whole detention effort.
It's a long process, but we started the operations in Swat and Malakand somewhere in 2009. And during this process, we came across people who were involved in terrorism, primarily for three reasons. First of all, there was a small group of people who were ideologically brainwashed. And let me share with you, prior to the launch of their terrorist activities, the terrorists had launched a media campaign on FM stations across the area, and they were trying to brainwash the public in general and vulnerable parts of the society in particular. So this was one group which was ideologically motivated. The other group was those who were jobless or illiterates with no scope of job. And I was sharing during the lunch with my colleagues that the terrorists were paying about 20,000 rupees a month to a common soldier or a foot soldier, whereas our regular soldiers were not enjoying that sort of pay. So this was the second category, the homeless sort of a people who were involved in terrorism. And the third category were those who were coerced into terrorism. Now, the coercion was that they would come to a village with all the arms and weapons and everything, and they would say that this village can be spared destruction if each family gives one male member as a foot soldier. So this is the sort of make of the people who were involved in terrorism. So as the operations continued, a large number of them were either surrendered or surrounded, and they were taken into custody. The figure was around 2,200 and some figure as of last year, 2011, beginning 2011. So what we did was that out of these 2,200 and something, we started profiling, a 6 months long profiling period of these detainees into three categories: black, gray and white, obviously. The whites were released after necessary screening, and those were mostly the boys or men who had been coerced into the activity. We went to their villages, confirmed what sort of people they were. In any case, the clinical psychologists and psychiatrists, they profiled those, got into their minds. So that was sort of white people were let off. We were left with the gray and the black. The blacks, we had categorized those who were involved in heinous crimes, like killing of civilians and soldiers, suicide, planning suicide missions, handlers of suicide bombers, other bombing campaigns that were launched by them, and some were even involved in mutilating the bodies of civilians and soldiers. So they were the sort of the black lot, which in my opinion is around, I would say 30% or 25 to 30% of the total lot. So those were segregated, and we are now starting with the judicial trial of those people through the normal course of judicial system. Now we were left with the grays. So what we started was that we started from the bottom, the light gray, if you may say so, and having profiled them, we started working on them. There were two things in that. One was that the light grays were easy to de-radicalize. So we started from an easier path up towards the difficult part. And as they de-radicalized and as we worked with them, two things happened. One, we gained experience in the process, and we sort of put our processes in order and advanced them. The other was that their colleagues and their partners, they saw the dividends of getting de-radicalized, going through the system and getting out of it. As General Qamar had shared, we not only de-radicalized the individual, we de-radicalized their families also. And we also worked out a comprehensive package of post-de-radicalization rehab in the society. Now, in which we not only gave them vocational training in all the subjects that were shown on the screen, we also funded their post-rehab, business or whatever they wanted to do. For example, if somebody was trained as an auto mechanic, he was given necessary funding to set up his own small workshop to repair motor cars or whatever. We even went to the extent that we would give the rent of the shop or the workshop for 3 months to that individual. So we really left no choice for that individual to return back to the radical thought and the process. He found a respect in the society, and he found his own family. A jobless man doesn't have respect in his family also. So he found respect in the family and in the society. And finally, what I would like to share is that we also made a societal commitment so as to say that if a boy or a girl was coming from a village, we got the village elders together. They were brought on board of the project, and they became the guarantors of that child or person, that this child and person will be owned by the village per se, and then ensured the necessary cooperation on that end, that he or she does not come back to the radical platform again. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you very much.